Yeah, it's interesting. Like over the offseason, I kept saying, Hagens he's got to be a world beater this year. He's got to be like, I was at UMass when Cale Makar was there. It's like that sophomore year that Cale Makar had that he won the Hobie. Like that's got to be James Hagens this season, and it hasn't been so far. But I do think there are some caveats. He's not playing with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault anymore. BC's struggled. They're not as talented as they have been in years past. And he still produced at the same rate he did last year. And I think there's value to that. You look at and they've moved him to the wing, which is a little concerning, but he has been better since being moved to the wing. I just want to see him as a center. I want him to develop as a center. And if he comes to the NHL and he's a wing, then fine. But I do want to see him take as many reps as possible at center. And I know obviously during the course of a shift, you can take over the center's responsibilities throughout. But his skill, his vision have been fantastic. And I do think he's been better at getting to high danger ice, which was kind of a knock on him throughout his draft year and even before then. The other thing I want to see is him elevating his line mates. That's a big one for me. He's had a revolving door on both sides when he was down the middle, and he's had different centers and wings that he's played with throughout the season. So I do think it's going to take time, but I think by the end of the year, if he continues this point space and guys playing with him produce as well, that's a good thing. Dean Letourneau is a great story. You think about last year, there were so many people who were ready to write him off, who were writing him off. And I kept saying, I was like, it's 1 year in, this guy's a project. He's 6'7". He's a center. He's coming out of St. Andrews, which is prep school hockey, to college. I mean, that is rarely done now. I don't expect him to do much of anything. And he didn't. I mean, he was clearly over his head and people are writing him off. And I'm like, give it a year, give it some time. And he's been fantastic this year, 11 points in 13 games. His shot's been great. He has 5 goals. He's been an impactful guy for them. And I think, I know there are fans who are probably like, get him up here next year. And it's like, no, Dean Letourneau should take as much time at BC as he needs. I think if he continues at this pace this year, you take that and you hope next year he's at the same pace or better, continues to improve his game, continues to round out his game. And then you hope this seems like a long time away, 27, 28, he's in Providence. And again, that's projecting far out, but to his credit, he's on that path. I think that's a really good thing for them because what Letourneau could be, whether it's, I think he's, become physical enough where he could play in a bottom 6 role. He can play on the wing. Or there's that other end where if he continues to produce at this rate, he's a candidate for the top 6 somewhere. So it's been very encouraging for Letourneau. Hagens has been solid too. So yeah, BC Light over on ComAb. They haven't been as dominant, I think, as we thought they would be, but it's still early and the results are still not too bad.
In the last segment, I was going to touch on Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith a little bit, just like watching these young guys play. Barry Peterson was on our desk yesterday and he said in terms of Celebrini, he's like, I thought it would take him, a couple of years longer to get kind of to the points production that he is now. And I know that he was highly touted for a really long time. Like everyone was talking Celebrini for a lot of years. But just in terms of age and making it to the NHL, when is it obvious, because a lot of the questions this development camp was, when will someone like James Hagen or Dean Letourneau be available to the big club? And some of the fear is like you bring them up too early, then you send them down to Providence and then their confidence is shot, et cetera, et cetera. So is there an obvious answer with that, or does it really just depend on how they do in college, or is it an eye test? And I can ask Razor the same thing, but Evan, with you've covered, college hockey and you've seen the transition. Is there an obvious answer to when guys are ready?
No, there isn't an obvious answer, and that's what makes it hard. That's the real thing where there isn't a tell. I think, Razor can attest to this with anybody, but especially goalies. It's impossible to know. I think it hits at different points for people. Some are late bloomers, some early. I know Celebrini, what's interesting is that 24 draft, because I remember Cole Iserman, being from Newburyport, and we covered him heavily. He was ranked over Celebrini on a lot of draft boards early in that 24 cycle. And you look back and you're like, oh my God, Celebrini's a potential generational player. He was coming out of the USHL where he had a really good year, but it still wasn't obvious. And I think that with him, I mean, he's been outstanding. The impact that he's made, I mean, he was so good his freshman year at BU. And then to have the success that he's had in San Jose early, where it's like, he's potentially like, he's definitely a top 10 player right now. And some are, throwing around the word generational. And I don't think that's insane. And then the other thing is like Will Smith has kind of been overshadowed by how good Macklin's been. And Will Smith's vision, his hockey IQ, he sees the game differently than most. Like you see some of the passes that he makes on goals, and it's, they get overlooked sometimes, but it's like, how did you see that? And coming up, that was what he was. I mean, it's a different game for him. It's slower. He's smarter. It's really incredible. So those two have been incredible. And I think that the funny thing is, like, for a guy like James Hagens, he gets compared to those guys because they were so good in college, not that, a year or two ago, that, you're getting compared to Will Smith putting up over 80 points as a freshman, Macklin Celebrini winning the Hobie as a freshman. And I think the reality is those are guys on different levels. Those guys are on a different, somehow in a different stratosphere. And so I think that, the development they've had at the NHL level with Celebrini, how good he's been. And it really, like, San Jose is an exciting team to watch. You saw it on Sunday night. I always say they're one of my, and I'm biased because of New England ties, but like, they're one of my favorite teams. If it's 10 PM and, I'll throw their game on because it's just so fun to watch those two play together.
It's good to be young and stay up at 10:30 to watch hockey.
You've had to do it, Razor. You guys have been up for a while the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah,
these games.
It's you have to be. So that there's a carrot for me dangling at the end of that one. What's any other prospects, any other kids that have stood out this season for the Bruins that, the Zellers, the Pelosi's, those guys of the world that are a little bit further down the food chart? Talked about late bloomers, guys that aren't going to be rolled the red carpet to the National League, fight their way through. Any of those guys showed well here through November 24th of this season?
You hit the nail on the head with those two. I think Pelosi's been a huge surprise. This was someone who in his draft year was in the NAHL for half of the year. And I think a lot of people were like, 3rd round pick? Like, you even picked this kid? What are you talking about? And 9 goals, 15 points, 14 games. He plays like a Bruin. He's a two-way kind of guy, two-way center. And Quinnipiac's the perfect place you want to develop those guys. That's how the Bobcats play. That's a stingy defensive team. Every year they're somewhere in the bottom 5 of goals against. Rand Pecknold has them playing that kind of way. And Pelosi fits. So I think he's a guy that you can project when he gets to the pro level, he's going to make an impact as likely a bottom 6 center. But he's been producing. So it's like, there is that chance that he develops into potentially a middle 6 center. And then Will Zellers. I think Zellers, it was a huge deadline ad, immediately became one of your top prospects, 7 goals for North Dakota. And I just think his natural scoring ability, the fact that it's translating from the USHL, where he was awesome with Green Bay last year, to now North Dakota, where he's doing the same thing. Again, you look at someone like a Morgan Geekie, and he kind of just appeared out of thin air with all these goals. Zellers has that goal scoring ability. He has it. It's innate. And so he's someone that if he can, when he gets to the NHL level, be a middle 6 scoring winger that I'm going far away, like gives you consistently 20 goals, like you'll take that. So I think the fact that those two have been have exceeded expectations at this point, especially with Zellers being a freshman, Pelosi being in his second year at QU, like I think those are two really big bright spots for the Bruins. And the Bruins prospect pipeline's gotten a lot better in the last year. And I think you're seeing the fruit of it. You're seeing it now, which is good.
To wrap, maybe I really do trust, obviously, management in terms of who they're calling up, and when they decide so and so's ready. They wanted to see Tufte, Blumel, Alex Steves, Jonathan Aspro, et cetera, et cetera. But anyone currently in Providence that you haven't seen that you really want to get a look at on the NHL level. Again, because one of the guys has already had a couple of stints, that being Fabian Lysell, but someone like Patra, Merkulov, Lysell, anyone you want to see, or do you want to see more of maybe Blumel, who was a scratch the other night?
I definitely like that they're playing Blumel and Steves. I know Blumel, as you said, didn't play on Sunday night, but I like that they're getting a little bit of an extended rope. You're seeing what they are, which I think is really important for those guys. But Matt Patra is the one I want to see. I know he's struggled so far in Providence this year. What is he? And he's still young. He's still a really young player. He's someone I do want to see get an extended look again at the NHL level. Because again, is he better on the wing? Is he better down the middle? He's good with high-end talent. So like that's something where like Hustendinov was really good up there and held his own the last couple of weeks. But when Lindholm first went down, I was like, I want to see Patra up there, and good on the Hustendinov for owning that and proving that he's can be a guy that can slot into the top 6 when you need him. But Matt Patra is someone I do want to see more from, both in Providence and in the NHL. And with regards to Blumel and Steves, I think Steves is showing that he's kind of an anywhere in the lineup kind of guy. There's a physical element to his game that I do like, and that I think you can play him in different situations that I don't think you can with Blumel. It's only been a couple of games for Blumel up at the NHL level with the Bruins, so I can't make any sweeping declaration, but I do think, rounding out his game is a big thing for him. Also removing the question of, are you just an AHL top 6 forward? Can you do what you do at the AHL at the NHL level is big for him. And you're only going to get the answer to that by more playing time. So yeah, I would say Patra and then getting an extended look at Blumel, I think are my 2 things right now.